Hey folks, what's up? Welcome to Moment of Clarity. I want to talk about a few topics today. I figured I'd just, rather than present to you some of the hidden news, I'd kind of just bloviate, spray some thoughts out, which sounds dirty, on Ukraine, Supreme Court, and one other thing that, YouTube censorship. So let's just dive into that. I just want to talk about some of the things you're not hearing, some of the angles you're not hearing about these two major topics. It's what most of the mainstream media is talking about the past several days or even the past couple of weeks. Let's start with Supreme Court. So everyone's very excited. Justice Breyer is leaving, and so Biden is going to pick someone to go into the Supreme Court. And this is, the liberals are fucking jumping for joy. We get to put in a young person and not worry that the person's on death's door like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. By the way, no one seems to point out the fact that if Bader Ginsburg gave a shit about actually having her spot filled with another so-called progressive, however you want to define that term, she would have left under Obama when the Democrats had the House and Senate. So it was her own greed, selfishness, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that puts you in the position where Trump was filling that seat. But anyway, besides that, I'm going to get to why this is not as big a deal as everyone wants to believe it is. So there's been a lot of talk, a lot of articles about how, well, Biden has promised to fill the seat with a black woman. We need a black woman on the court. Very exciting for liberals. Now, here's the thing. This is identity politics, and I know the right wing loves to say, identity politics, but they love to get angry about identity politics because many of them are racist. But identity politics can be weaponized. It can be weaponized by the Democrats. It can be weaponized by the liberals to mean almost nothing. Saying that you're going to put a black woman in that spot only matters if that black woman is very progressive and, has the mental framework that works with trying to create large scale change. Just saying it's a black woman means near to nothing, such as Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris, black woman. What does she believe in? She believes in fucking endless war. She believes in locking up parents because their children missed school because they're truant. She believes in heavily criminalizing all drugs. Her office in California fought to not release prisoners from the incredibly overcrowded, largest prison state in the world in California. She believes in all of the worst fucking shit. She stands by while Biden has deported more than ever before. She stands by or supports it while Biden allows for the more oil and gas drilling rights than even Trump did. So just saying that this is a black woman, it means nothing. It has to do with what they stand for. And yet the Democrats, the liberals, the Democratic Party, when I say the Democrats, I usually mean the Democratic Party. I don't mean your average Democrat across the country, because obviously there are plenty of people across the country who think they're a Democrat because they want to create change. They want to get everybody health care. They want to raise the minimum wage. They want to give women the right to choose. And believe it or not, we still have no equal rights amendment for women. But so they believe those things, and so they're part of the Democratic Party. They're, registered Democrat or whatever, but they don't seem to understand that the Democrats, meaning the Democratic Party, the actual Congress people, etc., aren't doing any of those things. They don't stand for any of those things. If you look at what Biden has actually achieved, it's none of that. So this whole jumping up and down, we need a black woman on the court, it doesn't matter unless she actually stands for some real shit. And I can guarantee you that will not be the case. Well, Lee, how can you say that? Why? Maybe they'll find a really awesome progressive black woman who really wants to create change, however she can, in the Supreme Court. Well, I can say that because you aren't even considered for the Supreme Court by either party, by the fucking Republicans or the fucking Democratic Party. You are not even on the list of considerable people to be on the Supreme Court unless you already agree and support wholeheartedly the two most oppressive entities in the country, maybe in the world, but in the country. And that is unfettered capitalism and corporate America. If you don't support those two things, if you have shown through your career, through your education, through your decisions on the courts that you've been in, if you've shown that you are opposed to those things or willing to put restrictions on those things or in any way, fucking against corporate America running wild, doing whatever the fuck it wants, and keep in mind, corporate America owns the government, so corporate America is the government, really. If you show that you are against those things, or even that you are slightly putting the tiniest of leash, like a little baby leash, like you'd put on a baby that you tie up in your backyard. You know, when you leave a baby in your backyard for a couple of days because you got somewhere to be, and you just hook them up on one of those little baby leashes, and you know, there's a doghouse out there. They'll be, if it rains, they'll probably crawl towards the doghouse. They'll be fine. Point is, if they even show they want to put a baby leash on anything to do with corporate America, then they will not be under that consideration for that court. Okay? So the moment the list is created of possible Supreme Court justices to take a spot, it will not include anyone like that. Immediately, from the get-go. And that's not even talking about them being approved. They would never, of course, if it did include someone like that, they would never get approved by the Senate and the House because, or I guess it's just the Senate, because all the politicians are fucking corrupt pieces of shit that are all bought off by corporate America. That's who pays for their swimming pool and their brothel nights. So the idea that we're going to see some sort of crazy change is laughable. It's so very laughable. And you know, to go back to the identity thing, oh, it's going to be a black woman. Well, that's all that matters. That's okay. It doesn't matter what you believe. Put a black woman on the court. Guess what? Last I checked, the black man on the court was Clarence fucking Thomas, the most right wing, out of his fucking gourd piece of shit that has ever sat on that court is a black man. So now, if he weren't there right now, maybe people would be going, hey, Biden just needs to put a black person on the court. Just any black person will do because there's no black people on the court if Clarence Thomas weren't there. But people aren't saying that because Clarence Thomas is there. And so therefore they're like, oh, you know, maybe a black man is capable of believing all of the awful garbage shit that rich white America has created. Maybe that could be. Yeah, it really can be. And there's a lot of them out there. And there's a lot of fucking black women out there that believe in awful shit. So just saying you're putting a black woman on the court doesn't matter unless they believe in really creating large-scale change, which, of course, as I said, and I'm not talking races or anything else, race, gender, doesn't matter. You are not on that list of people that could possibly be put up for the Supreme Court unless you already support the two most oppressive entities in this entire country, the two most oppressive structural fucking filters that are over top of everything we do, and that is unfettered capitalism and unfettered corporate America. Now, we'll see over the coming weeks. There'll be all this bickering over believing in gay rights or abortion rights or this or that. But at the end of the day, yeah, and yes, I would like someone who's willing to defend a woman's right to choose. That'd be awesome. But if you're talking large scale, actually creating any kind of real change, ain't going to happen. Not a bit. Won't even get close. Won't even be put up for nomination. That's how that stands. And so this gets to the heart of the Supreme Court, which is the Supreme Court and our criminal justice system, which is really a criminal justice system. It's already built by incredibly rich, almost exclusively white men, but you know, we'll just stop at rich for the moment. Incredibly rich people, the oligarchy, who have created this system to largely protect their own interests. Yes, there are occasionally things where you go, wow, that's awesome. So, like the other day, Biden's allowance, whatever, Biden signing off on all these drilling rights in the Gulf of Mexico has just been overturned or stopped by a federal court, and which actually cited climate change as one of the reasons, so that these drilling rights are not going forward, at least for the moment. And everybody's going, wow, amazing. That's awesome, which it is. It's fucking awesome. Yes, stop all the drilling rights. Absolutely, immediately. If we want to survive for fucking 10 more years, we need to stop all the drilling rights, stop fossil fuel use. But that's an exception that proves the rule, right? That's this one little tiny, whoa, how'd that happen? In general, the system is the opposite. That's why that's even impressive. The system is meant to promote and protect the interests and the property and the belief system of the ruling elite, because that system was created by the rich, wealthy fucking oligarchs. That's how it was created. That's who's running it. That's who runs the show. That's who generally becomes judges. That's who generally is prosecuting and defending the cases. It's mostly people who are part of a very elite class. There are some wonderful lawyers who are, are either class traitors, meaning they may be rich, but they're willing to fight against the rich, or are people that are lawyers that are not rich and are willing to defend the poor and the oppressed. And those lawyers are amazing, but they are a small percentage. And anyway, even if you had all these great lawyers, even if it was 50-50 of asshole lawyers versus great lawyers, that willing to fighting to create a better world, it still, the system, the courts, the criminal justice system is built on the oligarchy's wants and needs. And so the Supreme Court is just the highest level of that. Again and again, the Supreme Court shows that it is there to protect the ruling elite. In the rare case that it does something that seems like it's for the people, it generally is because, either it came down to something where it was like, oh, well, we believe in states' rights or something like that, or it's because they realize that if they don't allow these things, you could have a revolution. You could really push it to the point where the people are so exploited and so beaten down that they start standing up. So there are moments where the court does something positive, but again, few and far between. They are the exceptions that prove the rule. So yeah, there's a little something on the Supreme Court. Also, I'll just throw in here, as maybe you've heard me say before, Supreme Court is one of the least democratic piece of shit organizations, in the fact that these are people who are not elected. They're not elected by you or me. They're not elected by the American people. They serve forever, which is completely undemocratic. I mean, you could put some fucking piece of shit in there, and he's in there till he's pooping the bench. He's pooping the. Listen, I've pooped the court again. We need to adjourn for a few minutes. Ginsburg has pooped the court again. They're in there for fucking ever. And those rules about like, oh, they serve forever were put in play when people lived to like 43. It was rare that people made it past 50. And if they did, they weren't able to actually walk into the court. So they just left them in a field somewhere, like how they used to do. It was not, that institution was not built for people to live 95, 102 years old or what have you. Somebody rolled in there, doesn't even know where he is, just signing off on what is that? We just decided that it's legal to have to fucking own a small child of your choosing as long as you found them at a Walmart. Okay, sure. Who said what? It's ridiculous. And the fact that we don't realize that it's ridiculous and fucking change it is also amazing. So you've got this incredibly undemocratic organization that we're told is this bastion of the final say in America. And it's just bullshit. They all support without an exception, without a single exception, they support the incredibly oppressive forces that hold people down, that create millions of homeless or poor in this country, that allow us to continue down a path of death and destruction and war around the world, rather than a path of equality and justice and care for others, and not judging people based on the color of their skin or based on the country they were born in. Isn't that funny that we finally gotten to a place where, at the very least, yes, we have crazy institutional racism. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, but it's not okay generally in most places to publicly talk about racism, to publicly support racism. Underneath, it's all fucking still there. But so how is that any difference? How is that any different than publicly supporting racism when it comes to nations? Saying every fucking Russian is evil. Every fucking Iranian, evil. We need to have sanctions on Afghanistan because they're all fucking baddies. Bad people. How is that any different than racism? Rather than the color of their skin, you're just picking up borders and you go, they were born inside this square on this map here, which I didn't even realize where that country was, but I was told anyone born in the square I can't find on the map is evil. Bad people. So we got to put economic war on them, make sure they can't eat the food stuff. How does that make any sense? How is that any different than racism? And yet it's acceptable. It's what the so-called progressives do in our government. It's what the so-called fucking media does as they promote war with Russia, as they promote war with North Korea or with China or with Afghanistan or with Yemen or with Libya or with Iran or with Iraq or with Syria. I'm sorry, I'm running out of enough oxygen to finish the list of countries that we just endlessly destroy. Venezuela, Cuba. And so how is that fucking different than racism? You assholes. So it's become wrong to publicly support racism. Thank God. How is it not wrong to publicly support racism that is just based on borders? You could say nationalism, but nationalism sounds like, oh, I just like my country. No, that's fine. You can like your country. I think it's silly because how can you say I like everybody in this country when, you meet someone from up north and you're like, fuck that guy. You meet someone who went to a different college. It was the high school that was your arch nemesis on the baseball field in high school, and you're like, fuck that guy. He went to Godwin High School. What a loser. I bet he fucks squirrels and eats possums because he can't afford to buy regular food because he's a loser and he's poor and he's lame. Like, honestly, you tell someone who went to the arch nemesis high school, they fucking hate him. Or so how is it possible that just because you're in the same country, you got to love the... No, of course you don't love everybody in that country. So then why say everybody in that country is fucking perfect? USA is number one. Everybody in America is number one. That's right. Everybody in America is number one. Except the same liberals that will say like, oh, well, America we're trying to help the world and that's why we have to go to war with all these countries. The same ones you say like, oh, this person over here supported Trump. And they're like, fuck that guy. Fucking racist about piece of shit. And it's like, well, what happened to everybody in America is good and everybody in that other country is bad? But anyway, that aside, let's move on to it was a nice segue to Ukraine and what's going on with that. So I'm not going to get into every little detail play by play, but let's think about the broad picture here. Russia has moved Russian troops within Russia. Say it slowly to yourself. Russia has moved Russian troops within Russia. Now, take a pause and ask yourself what the response of the United States would be if other countries told us we couldn't move our troops within the United States. What would the response be of other countries? I mean, what would the response be of the United States if other countries were like, they move troops to California, they're trying to create war? Like, it's hilarious to watch the mainstream media, garbage piece of shit mainstream media, be like, Russia moved troops within Russia. But here's the thing, they carefully phrase it because they don't want to say Russia moved troops within Russia because that sounds like something they should be allowed to do inside their own country. So they say Russia's amassing troops. You notice America never amasses troops. Only the bad countries that we view as evil. Only they amass troops. We never amass troops. We didn't amass troops in Afghanistan or Iraq or Libya. We don't amass troops. No. It's the evil people amass troops. So Russia's amassing troops on the Ukrainian border. That's how they say it, because they have to not say within Russia, because I think they're allowed to move their troops within Russia. But even beyond that, have we forgotten that the United States has 900 military bases around the world outside of the United States? Imagine if Russia today or tomorrow was like, you know what? We just decided we only have about 18 military bases outside of Russia, and almost all of those are inside the old Soviet bloc. So we have almost no military bases outside of the Soviet bloc. But that being said, we just decided that we're going to go from 18 to 1,000 or 900 around the world. How do you think the United States would respond to that? But that's where the United States stands. We have 900 military bases. Maybe it's 1,000. It's tough to say with all the black sites around that they don't tell us about. 900 military bases around the world. And yet we're criticizing a country for moving their own troops in their own borders. Hilarious. Also, there's the fact that China, who we act like is trying to take over the world, has one military base outside of China. And yet we act like they're trying to take over the world. So a little more that you need to know about Ukraine. For one thing, the U.S. promised Russia that the NATO alliance, which is really a war-creating alliance. Everyone in America is told to believe, oh, NATO's this good, peaceful organization. No, NATO's really a war organization, right? I mean, look at Libya, right? We basically got NATO to sign off on completely destroying Libya, and we fucking crushed it, turned it into a warring warlords, took it from one of the most advanced countries. And this isn't saying everything Gaddafi did was good, but took it from one of the most advanced countries in Africa to one of the most fucked up places with open slave markets. Anyway, NATO, we promised Russia decades ago that NATO would never go past a certain line in Europe, and we have passed it. So basically, we're encroaching slowly to closer and closer to Russia, basically surrounding Russia. We have missiles on their borders. We have NATO surrounding them. We're now trying to put Ukraine in NATO, which, again, Ukraine is a old part of the Soviet bloc, and used to be part of the Soviet bloc. So Russia views it as kind of something that is more in their neighborhood than in the U.S. neighborhood. But, and so then you have the 2014, 2015, when Obama and the U.S. helped create a coup in Ukraine and put into power a Nazi sympathizer, to be gentle, really a Nazi collaborator. I mean, so there are current day Nazis, neo-Nazis in Ukraine, such as the Azov Battalion, that are outwardly, like, you can read quotes by them. They are outwardly white supremacist, outwardly Nazi, and the U.S. is working with them, helping them. So we basically put people that are cool with that in power in Ukraine. And you can go Google current articles by mainstream outlets like Yahoo News have done coverage on how the CIA is funding and arming these Nazis in Ukraine on the border of Russia to basically, create havoc with Russia. So the CIA is like, take all these weapons, take all this shit, just be a fucking awful presence on Russia's border, And we're playing with fire because we're creating a situation that could be devastating between two nuclear powers. And that's what the US has been doing over the past several years. And now we're saying, oh, well, we need to send more weapons to Ukraine. Russia's trying to create war. And if you watch CNN or MSNBC, if that's all you get, if that's the only, or NPR or whatever, if that's the only place you get in most Fox News, if that's the only place you get your news, then you think that Russia's just creating a war right now. Russia, what's Russia doing? Why are they doing this? Without any background, without all of the background I just gave you. So it's an incredibly shitty situation, and it's created purely by the United States. And keep in mind, Biden has, these people all have connections to Ukraine. Adam Schiff has connections to, like, you know, they're all invested in weapons contractors that make a lot of money by sending weapons to places like Ukraine, or even just make money by the threat of war. If people think that war is on the cusp or could happen, then they invest in these weapon contractors like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, etc., Boeing. And so it's good for them just to have it look like there's going to be war. If people think there's going to be war with Iran, then it's good for them. Even if weapons are not sold to these to places around those areas, even if that didn't happen, they would still be good for the weapon contractors, because when people think you're on the cusp of war, guess what? They invest in weapons contractors because they think, that's going to be useful. So it's good for their stock. It's great for them. What's bad for their stock is when someone threatens peace, as Donald Trump, who, as I hope you know, I view as an utter piece of fucking shit beyond all belief. Donald Trump tried to create peace with North Korea. Now, he did it for his own reasons. He did it because he wanted to have a legacy. He did it because maybe he likes fucking Kim Jong-un, whatever the fucking reason. But the moment he said there was going to be peace with North Korea, the weapons contractor stock tanked. All of them tanked, because that meant if there is peace with North Korea, you don't have to sell weapons to all the places around North Korea. And so guess what? It never happened, right? They found ways to stop it. Still at war with North Korea, still trying to crush them, still trying to crush them with economic sanctions, still starving people, causing people to starve in North Korea from our sanctions to death on a regular basis. We're talking tens of thousands, and we're excited about it. So that's some of the background of this situation. But if you watch these news outlets, you think, oh, just Russia trying to make war. Russia's always trying to create war. I mean, it's fucking hilarious. And of course, then you also have the fact that Biden has terrible approval rating. COVID is running wild. He hasn't done anything beneficial in that regard. All the things that initially were sent out to help people get through this shit have all been stopped. The eviction moratoriums, etc., and people are suffering unbelievably. So you have incredibly low approval rating, people suffering at a very high rate. He can't get his ridiculous watered down infrastructure bill through. So what do? Well, the way you win the midterms is you create a war with somebody. You find somewhere to cover something that is at least warlike enough that it's going to fill all the media channels. It's all they're going to talk about. People are going to get scared. Scared people stay in line. They don't get angry. They don't stand up. Scared people sit in place and they go, please protect me, daddy. So you get people scared. You get people worried. You get people supporting our country in the big, possibly impending war. So war, or even the threat of war, is good for all of these people. There is no downside except for nuclear Armageddon, which apparently they are fine with getting close to nuclear annihilation. They don't have a problem with it. Sure, maybe we'll kill everyone. Who cares? Anyway, that's what you have from these fucking psychomaniacs. Because we think we own the world. The United States of America thinks we own the world, and we need endless war to keep our economy doing well. And our economy is also on the brink of collapse. So you need big time war talk is what you need. And man, are they doing it. And man, are they sending trillions of dollars to the fucking Pentagon to promote all this shit. But meanwhile, you can't get this viewpoint on mainstream media. Can't fucking talk about it on mainstream media. You know, their discussions, their so-called panels, discussions on this are: do we bomb this week or we bomb next week? You know, that's the variety of sides, of variety of viewpoints you'll get from your mainstream media. It's not any of the true historical context, you know, and God forbid they go back a little further and talk about how Russia fucking saved the world with in World War II. For those who don't know, Russia lost something like 27 million people in the fight against Germany, because they were fighting Germany way longer than we were, and they were fighting them on their own turf, on their own ground. 27 million, somewhere in there, mid-20s, million Russians died fighting the Germans in World War II. How many Americans? What, 500,000? Maybe. I'm not saying the Americans didn't help, but there's a little bit of difference there. And if you listen to one of JFK's last speeches, he talks about this. And he talks about how there should be peace with Russia. And he talks about their contribution in World War II. But anyway, and their country was fucking destroyed as well. Besides just the death toll, as JFK said, it'd be like if the United States west of Chicago was just destroyed. Like, in terms of the amount of devastation. But anyway, so you can't get any of these viewpoints on mainstream media. Their job is to just trump up war, just promote it all. And Biden is a piece of shit. And of course, he doesn't care about any of the reality of this. It's just good for his poll ratings. It's good for midterms. You know, meanwhile, of course, he shouldn't even be making decisions on Ukraine, because we already know he has connections to the corruption in Ukraine. His son was on the board of a major energy company there. That's not just a Fox News talking point. It happens to be something Fox News is actually right about. Hunter Biden getting $50,000 a month to sit on an energy board, which means an oil company board in Ukraine. And what was his job there? You think he was down at the oil derricks with the goggles on, the fucking hard hat, just working all day, covered in black tar, just drilling to the center of the earth? No. His job was to say, hey, here's how you can talk to my dad. Here's how you can talk to Obama. Here's how you can talk to other corporate leaders that run our country. That was the job, $50,000 a month. Doing nothing but making phone calls for them. And then Biden said publicly, you can go watch the video, at that time, so this is before he's president, said publicly that he got the prosecutor that was looking into that oil company fired, from, like, completely fired from the government, from the Ukrainian government. And he did it by holding billions of dollars of aid over the head of the Ukrainian government. He said, get rid of that prosecutor, you won't get billions of dollars of aid. And he said, I'm leaving in a few hours, and if you haven't had it done by then this aid is not happening. So, well, you know, it's blackmail. It's fire this prosecutor or you don't get billions of dollars in aid. And he said this publicly. You can go watch it. He was proud of it. At the time, he was proud of it. I don't think he is anymore now that it's come out, but now that people are talking about it. But said it publicly. And then they fired the prosecutor that was looking into that oil company, Burisma, I think. And it's phenomenal corruption. I mean, the public admission of phenomenal corruption, and not even talked about, not even discussed. So really, he should be making no decisions related to Ukraine, because he's part of Ukrainian corruption. Anyway, that being said, that'll bring us to our next topic, our final topic, which is, why can't you hear any of these viewpoints on the mainstream media? Well, because of course their job is to do corporate America's bidding, and so they're not going to discuss any of this. The closest you'd get is someone who's kind of vaguely anti-war, like Tucker Carlson, but meanwhile he's a white supremacist. So he's like, we shouldn't go to war in Syria. But meanwhile, I'm going to do report after report about how immigrants are taking over the world or whatever the fuck he wants to say. Um, by the way, someone pointed this out to me the other day, and I don't know if I've said it before, but have you ever noticed that it's only called immigrants when it's like really mainly non-white people, or at least not wealthy people? And by wealthy, I'm just talking middle class. I'm not talking the richest of the rich. But when a middle class person or something relocates to another country, I mean, think about all these hedge fund people, all these fucking they move to UK or Canada or Japan or what. They move their places all the time for 6 months, a year, and they come back. Are they called immigrants or migrants? No, they're just you're a middle class or above person relocating. If I were to move to Britain right now, no one's gonna, because I'm a white guy. No one's gonna say like, "Oh, the goddamn immigrants coming here." If a middle class British person or a white British person moves to the United States, does anyone go, "Goddamn immigrants taking our jobs"? No. The term immigrant is reserved. Immigrant, migrant, refugee. I mean, refugee hopefully has to do with fleeing some horrible trauma in their homeland, but of course we don't use it correctly. But immigrant, migrant, those terms are reserved exclusively for like poor, almost exclusively non-white people. Then you're an immigrant. You're coming, you're taking, you're destroying our country because you didn't have enough money when you walked through the door and your skin color's not right. But anyway, so back to, you're not going to hear this on mainstream media. So that's why my stuff and the stuff that's people saying the same thing that might be like this, and we try and highlight all those voices at radindiemedia.com, the site I created, RADINDIE media.com. And no, it's not making me any money. In fact, I lose money every fucking month just to have it out there for you. There's no ads, there's no nothing like that. It's just you could call it donation sustained, but very few people are donating, so it's not definitely not a moneymaker. But it is it's meant to be there for you to find these voices. But so what I was gonna say is that the voices like me and my stuff are incredibly suppressed, heavily suppressed online. And I have kind of an update on that. I have two YouTube channels basically. I have mine, my personal one, which is called youtube.com/moment of clarity. And then there's the Redacted Tonight page that's not owned by me, but has all the Redacted Tonight content, youtube.com/redacted tonight. So Redacted Tonight YouTube page, which has 250,000 subscribers, although they've had us basically frozen, shadow banned for several years now. We get, 1%, maybe 5% of the views we used to get because they've put us on, we're the red alert in the algorithm. We post a video and fucking bells and alarms go off at YouTube headquarters where they try and make sure no one sees the video. But that being said, we still keep the platform because it's still a lot of subscribers that are there and we still want to have them see the videos. But the Redacted Tonight page has just, as of like today, been essentially demonetized. But I don't that money didn't go to me, and so I don't care that much about monetization. I mean, if it were up to me, I wouldn't even want to have ads on that channel. But the problem is when you're demonetized, it's a form of pushing you off the platform. And so it will probably hurt our views even more. And they give no reason for this. They just say that, a bunch of videos are not appropriate or something like that. And you have 9 strikes that are of inappropriate material or whatever they say, but they don't even hardly tell us anything. And so I think this is kind of the step before they actually delete our page. So Redacted Tonight will not have a YouTube presence at all soon. And so I wanted to let you guys know that, so that if that is where you're watching Redacted Tonight, to go get it at portable.tv or radindiemedia.com, because that channel very well may be gone soon. And you can join the free email list at leecamp.com. You can join it there, or you can text the word inside the United States. You can text the word redacted to 33777, because email is one of the ways I can still kind of let people know when the videos come out, but really it's up to you. It's up to you to look up the videos every week and to want to see Redacted Tonight. I hope you do want to see it. A new episode comes out tonight at portable.tv. Just scroll down to the Redacted Tonight channel. And yeah, I hope you'll keep up with our stuff, because they are wiping us off these channels. Now, there are alternatives that are being worked on, like Panquake. Please become a member at rockfin.com/Lee Camp. That has a lot of my stuff, but it doesn't have Redacted Tonight. So it's kind of up to you guys. And unfortunately, as I've seen, stuff is, and thank you for the donation, those who have donated. All the donations go to people who are struggling right now. So thank you for donations, but I'm just letting you know where they go. They go to people who are struggling and need a little help. But anyway, yeah, so it's on you to kind of keep checking back, keep watching Redacted Tonight. If you like it, keep sharing it, because we are getting pushed off all these platforms. And it's hilarious to me. Final point. It's hilarious to me that, like, my stuff is suppressed to within, nearing oblivion. Like, hardly anyone is shown my stuff on a feed or emailed when my stuff comes out or any of that stuff. But there are phenomenal pieces of shit getting hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. People that do video after video that are just homophobic, anti-trans, just anti-immigrant, just racist, every form of piece of shit you could imagine. Hundreds of thousands of views. So it really shows what is most threatening to YouTube, but YouTube is representing corporate America. So it really shows what is threatening to corporate America. It's not racism. It's not homophobia. It's not anti-trans stuff. It's not hating other people simply for who they are and wanting harm on them. All of that, it's not lies. It's not false reality. All of that is fine. It is criticizing corporate America. It's holding them accountable for their crimes. And it's criticizing capitalism. Those are the things that are really threatening to YouTube and the other corporate entities like them, Twitter, Facebook, etc. It's really not a big deal for them they have no problem with racism and all this garbage. And it's just amazing. I mean, the other day I was asked to be on a show that's on Blaze TV. Blaze is the channel created by Glenn Beck. So you know him, fucking awful piece of shit, right wing, racist, all the shit. As horrible as you can imagine. He creates something called Blaze. They have stuff there, and I'm asked to be on the channel, so I go look at the channel. And it's just not only is it just a false reality, they're like the global communist takeover of America. Really? Where? I'd like to see that, because last I checked, the Communist Party isn't even allowed in America, essentially. Like, what communist takeover has happened in America? Just laughably false stuff. On top of racism and homophobia and all that shit. So all in a nice big old stew. And those videos, hundreds of thousands of views. Allowed to be hugely popular on YouTube. Now, I'm not saying I want censorship. I'm saying the reverse. I'm saying all of these channels, including stuff like mine, should be allowed to grow. If pieces of shit, now obviously you shouldn't, I think. And we get into this with Panquake. There's a limit to calling to harm with others. If you're literally calling for others to be harmed or attacked, it's different. But anyway, it's just, I find it so funny that YouTube's like, we've cleaned up YouTube. And it's like, really? By promoting all of the racist right-wing shit shows and deleting any leftist content. Yeah, well done. Anyone who calls for equality and peace and justice, deleted. So anyway, I'm wrapping up here. To answer your question, Tony, I sometimes respond to things on the chat. I used to do more. When I would do Moment of Clarity, I used to do more of answering questions and things in the chat. But I noticed, and this is not an insult to anybody, I noticed that most of the chat was not questions to me. Many things are things I agree with, this person says power to the people. This person says they, meaning YouTube and them, hate the truth. He's got a photo of Assange and with the American flag over his mouth. Like, there are things I agree with, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your comments, but most of them are not questions for me, so I haven't been answering the chats as much simply because I think that's not as much what they're used for. But thank you so much for being here. And for the couple of people that donated, all these donations go to people who are struggling. And if you watch this not live, if you watch this at another time, you can still donate on Venmo at Lee Camp. None of that money goes to me. It all goes to people who are struggling. Many of them are often in the chat sometimes on when we're talking more about it, and they'll tell you where they were able to use the money, to cover things like utility bills or to get their car fixed so they can get to work or whatever. So it's great to see that you guys, your donations have helped so many people. I really appreciate it. But anyway, I hope you check out the new episode of Redacted tonight. It's got the most censored stories of the year on there this week. You can watch it at portable.tv. I'll try to put it up not too long after it goes live at leecamp.com. And of course, go join the Rad Indie Media email so you can get the top stories of the day every day in your email box. That's radindiemedia.com. All right. Thanks, guys. Keep fighting.